For almost all of human history, the Amazon has been seen as a vast uninhabited wilderness, a place so wild and untouched it must have felt like stepping into a world before humans ever existed. And let's be honest, when you picture the Amazon, what comes to mind? Probably endless trees, jaguars stalking through the underbush, and rivers teeming with piranhas. Not exactly the kind of place you'd expect to find cities, let alone millions of people.
It's not hard to see why this assumption has stuck for so long. This sprawling rainforest covers over 5.5 million square kilometers. Its rivers are so vast that the Amazon itself holds more water than the next 7 largest rivers in the world combined. Its ecosystem is home to 10% of all known species, from venomous snakes to fluorescent frogs. And let's not forget the diseases. The jungle is a breeding ground for malaria, yellow fever, and other illnesses that, for centuries, made it almost impossible for outsiders to explore.
And then there's the sheer density of the place.
The Amazon is a fortress of greenery. Trees grow so close together that sunlight barely reaches the forest floor. Vines and roots twist like nature's barbed wire, creating a nearly impenetrable barrier. For early explorers, it must have seemed like the jungle itself was working against them, so it's no wonder they believed that no one could live there, not in any significant numbers anyway.
But what if that assumption was wrong? And not just wrong, very wrong.
What if, hidden beneath this thick canopy, there was once a thriving civilization, one that didn't just survive here, but excelled, creating cities, roads, and a way of life that we've only just begun to uncover?
Because as it turns out, the Amazon may hold one of the greatest untold stories of human history. And to understand it, we need to look at what modern technology is revealing beneath the surface.
In the past few years, something extraordinary has been happening. Using cutting-edge technology, scientists have been peeling back the layers of the Amazon's dense canopy, and what they found beneath the soil is nothing short of mind-blowing. Strange clues dotted around the Amazon and beneath its soil that suggest the Amazon wasn't always the untouched wilderness we imagine it to be. In fact, they point to the possibility of something far more revolutionary.
Now, we're going to dive into these discoveries in just a moment. But before we do, it's crucial to understand why this idea is so controversial. Because what we're talking about here doesn't just add a new chapter to human history, it flips the entire narrative on its head.
For centuries, historians and anthropologists have taught us that advanced civilizations require one thing above all else: farming. Think about the great civilizations of the Americas, the Aztecs, the Maya, the Inca. What did they all have in common? Agriculture. They domesticated crops, planted fields, and built massive cities around their ability to produce food. Farming was the engine of progress, the foundation that allowed humans to transition from nomadic hunter-gatherers to settled, organized societies. Without it, no cities, no trade, no written records, no civilization as we know it.
But herein lies the problem. The Amazon rainforest isn't exactly known for its fertile farmland.
The soil here is notoriously poor, unable to support the kind of large-scale agriculture we associate with advanced societies. And that's why, for so long, the idea of an Amazonian civilization was dismissed. How could millions of people survive, let alone thrive, in a place where the land itself seems to work against you?
But as it turns out, the people of the Amazon may have done something extraordinary.
They may have found a way to bypass the traditional rules of human progress altogether, creating a large-scale organized civilization without relying on the kind of farming we've always assumed was essential.
This is something anthropologists didn't even think was possible until very recently. And to discover how they might have done it, we need to go back to the year 1542, when the first European explorer sailed into the heart of the Amazon rainforest. His name was Francisco de Orellana, and what he found would spark one of the greatest mysteries of human history.
In 1542, a Spanish explorer named Francisco de Orellana set out on an expedition that would become the stuff of legend. He was the first European to navigate the mighty Amazon River from end to end, a feat that even today sounds almost impossible. What he found along the way, however, was even more unbelievable. Orellana claimed he saw vast cities, cultivated fields, and thriving populations, civilizations so large and advanced they rivaled anything seen in Europe at the time.
It began as part of a larger expedition.
The group was searching for riches, gold, spices, but as they ventured deeper into the jungle, their supplies ran dangerously low. Starvation and illness set in. In desperation, Orellana took a small contingent and a single boat, sailing downriver to find food and help.
However, instead of barren jungle, what Orellana claimed to find was astonishing.
Along the riverbanks, he encountered villages and cities teeming with life. He described roads that connected settlements, massive communal structures, and vast fields of crops. The people, he said, were organized, sophisticated, and numerous. Gaspar de Carvajal, the expedition's chaplain, who chronicled their journey, wrote, "We saw large towns with populations so vast they could field thousands of warriors. They lived in houses that appeared well constructed and organized."
So what happened when Orellana finally returned to Spain to share his story? Well, no one believed him.
Vast cities in the Amazon? That sounded absurd to Europeans, who viewed the jungle as a hostile wilderness, incapable of supporting large populations. He was laughed at, and his accounts were dismissed as exaggerations, or worse, outright lies. A desperate attempt to justify a failed expedition.
And here's the thing, Orellana's story might have ended there.
If not for a second expedition in the mid-1600s, led by another explorer, Pedro Teixeira. Teixeira retraced Orellana's route down the Amazon.
But this time, he and his men found nothing.
No cities, no fields, no signs of the thriving civilizations Orellana had described. To them, the Amazon was just jungle, thick, impenetrable, and that seemed to confirm what everyone suspected. Orellana must have been lying.
And that's how the story stood for centuries.
Orellana's lost cities were relegated to the realm of myth. Nothing more than a curious footnote in history. But what if Orellana wasn't lying? What if, in 1542, those cities really did exist, and by the time Teixeira arrived, just 100 years later, they didn't? Could an entire civilization have risen and fallen in such a short span of time?
As impossible as it sounds, there's an explanation for what might have happened. An explanation tied to one of the most devastating forces ever unleashed upon humanity: disease. To understand how this could wipe out millions of people and leave almost no trace behind, we need to take a closer look at what happened when Europeans first set foot in the Amazon.
The answer to Orellana's mystery may lie in one of history's darkest tragedies: the arrival of Europeans in the Americas. Because along with their weapons and ships, the Spanish brought smallpox, measles, influenza, and other illnesses that swept through indigenous populations like wildfire, killing millions in the span of decades.
These diseases were devastating for one simple reason: the people of the Amazon, and indeed all the Americas, had no immunity to them.
These were illnesses that had evolved in Europe and Asia over centuries, where people had been exposed to domesticated animals, crowded cities, and frequent plagues. But for indigenous populations, they were entirely new, and the results were catastrophic. It's estimated that diseases brought by Europeans wiped out up to 90% of some indigenous populations within just a few generations.
Now imagine what that would look like in the Amazon. Cities once bustling with activity would have fallen silent as disease swept through, leaving entire communities decimated.
Villages abandoned, crops left untended, roads overgrown, and all of this happened in the period before European explorers like Teixeira arrived, which is why they found nothing but jungle and silence where Orellana had claimed to have seen thriving civilizations.
But wouldn't there still be buildings and archaeological evidence left behind? Well, the answer is no, because it's entirely possible that a civilization of millions of people could have been erased in a mere 150 years. And I'll tell you why in just a second. But first, let's jump ahead to the modern day.
So is it possible that Orellana was telling the truth? That these cities did exist, only to vanish before anyone else could see them? Modern discoveries are starting to suggest that the answer is yes.
Thanks to modern technology and scientific breakthroughs, the Amazon is finally giving up its secrets. And what we're finding beneath the canopy is nothing short of extraordinary.
One of the biggest breakthroughs came with the use of LiDAR. This technology, which basically involves shooting lasers from aircraft, allows scientists to see through the dense vegetation and map what lies beneath.
And what they found is astonishing.
Massive geometric earthworks, elaborate road networks, and evidence of settlements that could have housed tens, even hundreds of thousands of people. For example, in Bolivia, archaeologists uncovered vast circular structures and canals, suggesting highly organized societies with advanced water management systems. These geoglyphs hint at a deep understanding of engineering and urban planning. In the Brazilian Amazon, researchers have found evidence of grid-like patterns, suggesting streets, plazas, and neighborhoods, all hidden beneath centuries of forest growth. And then there's the sheer scale of the discoveries. What we're talking about here isn't just a village or two. These are networks of settlements stretching across hundreds of miles, connected by roads that were likely used for trade and communication.
These discoveries are forcing historians and archaeologists to rethink everything. Maybe the Amazon wasn't just a wilderness. Perhaps it was a complex, interconnected world, home to millions of people who found ways to live, farm, and build in one of the most challenging environments on Earth.
But as incredible as these discoveries are, they also raise an even bigger question. How did these people manage to sustain such large populations without relying on traditional agriculture?
So here we are, faced with evidence that millions of people in the Amazon may have built large, organized societies without relying on the kind of large-scale agriculture that powered civilizations like the Aztecs and Egyptians. So how did they do it? How could they sustain such massive populations in a place with such poor soil and limited resources?
To understand the challenge, you need to know a little about the Amazon's soil. It's notoriously poor in nutrients, which is why farming as we know it has always been thought to be nearly impossible here. Crops like maize or wheat would have struggled to grow on this land without constant fertilization.
And yet the evidence shows that these ancient people thrived.
Scattered across the Amazon, researchers have discovered patches of soil unlike anything else in the region. Known as Terra preta, or black earth, this man-made soil is incredibly fertile, so much so that it's still used for farming today. It's rich in nutrients and packed with microscopic charcoal particles, suggesting it was created intentionally by ancient inhabitants to sustain agriculture on a massive scale. The existence of Terra preta challenges the long-standing belief that the Amazon's poor soil couldn't support large populations. Instead, it suggests that these ancient societies didn't just adapt to their environment, they transformed it, creating the conditions they needed to thrive.
Essentially, these people turned the Amazon into a giant food-producing system, blending nature and cultivation so seamlessly that the jungle itself became their farm. This approach wasn't just sustainable, it was genius. It allowed them to avoid the soil exhaustion and deforestation that often came with traditional farming, ensuring that the rainforest could continue to support them for generations.
All of this points to a civilization that didn't follow the traditional path of agricultural development. Instead, they created their own system, one that was perfectly adapted to the challenges and opportunities of the Amazon.
But if these societies were so innovative, so in tune with their environments, what's happened to them? How could they disappear so completely? The answer lies in the forces that both built their world and ultimately led to its destruction.
Unlike in other parts of the world, where stone ruins or dry climates preserve ancient cities, the Amazon is a living, breathing machine of destruction. Unlike the stone cities of the Maya or the Inca, which left behind towering ruins, the civilizations of the Amazon probably use mostly organic materials like wood, earth, and thatch. These materials decompose rapidly in the rainforest's hot, humid environment. Add to that the relentless growth of vegetation, and within decades, any trace of human structures could be completely swallowed by the jungle. Then there's the Amazon River itself. Its vast network floods regularly, creating massive seasonal changes in water levels. Over time, these floods can wash away entire settlements, erase roads, and reshape the landscape. It's a constant reminder that in the Amazon, nature is in charge, and even the most advanced societies had to contend with its power.
And finally, there's the simple fact that time erases memory.
Without written records, oral histories of these civilizations would have faded over generations, especially as survivors were absorbed into smaller, more isolated groups. By the time explorers returned to the Amazon, the cities Orana described were gone, erased not just physically, but culturally.
So my friends, it appears that it is indeed very possible that everything we thought we knew about the Amazon is wrong. We are quite possibly witnessing the discovery of a lost, large, interconnected, and highly sophisticated civilization in the Amazon, hidden deep within the world's largest rainforest. But let's take a moment to imagine, what if this is just the beginning?
What if the Amazon wasn't just home to a few scattered cities, but an entire network of societies stretching across the jungle like a vast web of human ingenuity? What if these people not only thrived here, but unlocked secrets of sustainability and coexistence with nature that we've completely forgotten? And what if, buried beneath the jungle's dense canopy, there are still untold wonders waiting to be uncovered, ancient technologies, lost knowledge, and stories that could redefine how we see our past, our planet, and even our future?
Because here's the thing, if they could build and thrive in an environment that we've always considered impossible, what does that say about the limits of human potential? What does that say about what we could do if we learned to work with nature rather than against it? And what secrets and story lay hidden deep within the rainforest? The Amazon is no longer just a wilderness, it's a mystery, a living time capsule of human resilience and innovation. And the more we uncover, the more we realize how much we still don't understand. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel.